This is Retiring Today, the podcast that guides you to and through retirement. I'm Molly Nelson, host of the podcast, here with Chawn Honkomp. He's a certified financial planner, a certified financial fiduciary, and a CPA. And Clint Huntrods. He's an investment advisor representative. Well, a new phase of life requires a new way of thinking about income. So today we want to talk about rethinking income as you head into retirement. It's a mindset shift as you head into retirement. Guys, first thing that comes to mind for me was that a shift of living with my parents and then living on my own. Do you recall? It was a while ago, a little further.
It's been a few years. It's been a few decades even.
It was a few decades ago, but wasn't it a shift? You know, here was the life I had. School, some sort of a practice, came home and there was a meal. It's just sitting on the table, usually homemade. My mom is an excellent cook. Took a shower, went to bed, repeat. Then I went to college and had to do a lot more on my own. It required a mindset shift, a lot more responsibility. Things were a lot more difficult, and that is a time that we all can, I think, relate to.
Yeah, I don't remember ever feeling nervous about it. I remember feeling pretty excited about it. I mean, growing up on a farm, I was maybe looking a little bit too getting away from having to do so many chores and being able to just fully control my clock and my own time and kind of come and go as I please. So yeah, it was a very exciting time of life for myself.
So today we're going to talk about that mindset shift that's coming for those who are getting ready to retire. You know it's coming, but guys, here's the thing. You've never retired before, Clint, so this is going to be the first time. It's all going to be new.
Yeah, we were recently in a visit with somebody, and they said, hey, I feel like the rules are shifting. And not just the rules are shifting, but I'm actually playing a different sport. And they likened it, and this is their example, thought it was awesome, is I've been accumulating throughout my life, and it feels like I understand that, and I've done a good job with it. And they said, this feels like football. I played football, I understand the rules of football. But they said, as we start to think about punching the button that says, hey, I'm going to retire, and now we've got to go and find out how does our income come from the other assets that we have. It's not a traditional paycheck. They said, it feels like we're now playing cricket. And they said, we have never played cricket before. We have no idea what the rules are. And they've found themselves in that position where it's a mindset shift. The rules are different. And they've never had to do it before, exactly like you're saying.
Yeah, and they're playing cricket, and they still want to win, right? They still want to go out there and compete. They don't want to feel lost. No one wants to feel lost in retirement. So what we want to do today is talk about the mindset shift. Man, that is a tough one for me to spit
It's not going to be the last time that happens here during this podcast.
I'm real close to saying something else. The mindset shift, and help people prepare for it, because the more you know about what's coming, the better you can do. And I think they're going to walk away with some tips and some tricks that will help them get ready for this next phase of life. So before we can talk about the shift, let's talk about kind of before retirement. So again, the focus here today, guys, is on income. Before retirement, how do people often think about income?
It generally feels a little easier. I mean, before retirement, you're still working. You've got that steady cash flow that somebody else is providing, which is a great part of still having that job. And it's a little bit on autopilot. You know exactly, for most of us, know exactly what's going to hit your bank account every 2 weeks or whenever you get paid. Your focus is really just on managing that cash flow, managing how much you're saving. So if you're putting into your 401k, some of that's coming out before the paycheck. Maybe you're taking some of that bring home cash flow and putting it into IRAs or just building up savings. So your focus really is on that cash flow and on the savings and really just on that investing. So it feels kind of autopilot because you've been doing that for a really long time.
And Clint, in retirement, it goes from football to cricket, the income, it's a different game.
Yeah, and honestly, so is lifestyle. And so we hear that a lot, that somebody, maybe families were in meeting with for the first time, they haven't had to budget for a while. They're at some of the peak earning years in their career, and now we start to talk about what's lifestyle look in retirement, and they're having to rebuild it from scratch in many cases and saying, okay, well, is there going to be more travel that's going to be involved? And then ultimately all these things are helping to provide what are we going to need to deliver you for income on a regular basis, and then where do we look across your accounts to most efficiently deliver you that as you shift gears from that traditional wage to the retirement income years.
You have visits with people every day. You talk to people during 15-minute retirement checkup calls. Chawn, they have a lot of questions about where this retirement income is going to come from.
Yeah, it's funny sometimes to experience that on our end because we get some of the most basic questions of, can I get my money? Or how do I get my money? And again, of course we laugh because yes, it's your money. So you have full access to it, but this is a new stage of life because you've never done that before. You've been doing nothing but accumulating, and now you need to shift to distribution stage. And of course you have questions because you've never done it before. And that's part of our role, to be that professional and help you develop that income plan.
Yeah, it's definitely not funny if you're unsure of something. Yes, you help people do it every day, so you know, hey, I've got you. I've got the answers for you. I'm going to help you kind of work through this uncertainty. But I think people not only want to know how to get their money, they've got 3 or 4 different types of accounts. They want to know in what order they should take them out. Clint, investments, they have questions about that as well.
And in the age that we live in, you can get all of the answers you can possibly want by a quick Google search or by talking to your friends, parents, coworkers. Everybody has information for you, but it's hard to figure out maybe what's the right decision for you, which often does lead to more questions than certainly answers.
Clint, have you ever Googled retirement income? Do you know how many answers come up? Thousands.
Hundreds of thousands.
So yes, you were being, I think, a little sarcastic there, a little tongue in cheek. Yeah, you can Google a lot of things, but having to wade through the information that you find online when it comes to this stuff is daunting. And we've all read some articles that, quite frankly, are inaccurate or wrong and could really mislead people down the wrong path.
Yeah, and the right decision for you is maybe not the same right decision for your neighbor or for your coworker. Somebody just recently in a visit was saying their parents are giving them recommendations for Social Security election decision. Their parents are in their 80s, and they're saying, hey, you need to elect it at this time. And they're just saying, I think the world is a little different than it was, no offense, Mom and Dad, when you were at that point. I mean, retirement, we're building income from different sources in many cases with a reduction in the number of people that have a pension. I mean, the world looks different today than it did 20, 25 years ago. And so again, everybody's got information, they want to help you, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to having a customized plan built for you, not for those around you.
And that's some of the power of that plan, is to not look at this as a transaction and have that plan so that you're looking at your entire picture as you do make some of these individual decisions. You know, some of the decisions we help the families we work with make are one-time decisions, and then there's a lot of decisions too that are ongoing and something that we help you look at year after year.
I'm glad you said Social Security, because again, I'm going with that current mindset. I'm trying to paint that picture for the listener of where they're probably at. Where am I going to get my income from? They might be thinking, I'll just take Social Security when I hit a certain age on the calendar. And another common thought people have is when it comes to income, I'll just withdraw 4% each year. They've maybe read that online, or a friend said that's the way to get to and through retirement is to withdraw 4% every year. And I'm sure a lot of people listening have heard that. So I want to dive into just one example of these rules of thumb, because you hear this 4% rule, and guys, this might work for some people, it might not work for others.
Yeah, when you apply averages, that isn't always going to work for everybody, because you don't care about averages. You care about one plan, and that's your plan, and you don't want to chance your retirement success based on averages. And really what that 4% rule is says that you take 4% of your total portfolio savings out each year, and with a high degree of confidence, you should feel comfortable that you're still going to have money left throughout retirement. So on $1 million portfolio, you can take $40,000 out, use that to cover a certain amount of your lifestyle expense, and then we're hoping that the markets are positive and you're going to continue to get some growth and replenish that. And if you continue to do that year after year, you're still going to be in a strong position throughout your retirement journey.
Another kind of popular assumption is that you need some specific amount to retire. I know, Clint, you've probably heard people say $1 million. That's the amount you need to retire. People kind of have that as a current mindset.
Yeah, and the big questions around that is, what do you typically need to live your life? What other income sources do you have? We see on a regular basis families that have really strong plans because maybe they have a pension, and maybe that's something that's going to help to not have to put as much stress on their retirement assets, their spendable assets. And so they may have a very different approach and not maybe need as much built up in terms of a certain dollar amount, because they're going to be able to have other income sources that help to provide their lifestyle, which again, back to like we talked before, your lifestyle versus the person next to you could be very, very different. And so ultimately at the end of the day, again, these rules of averages are nice, but they just don't work for everybody. and ultimately, you've got to work to figure that type of thing out, and that's oftentimes where a plan and a planner is going to be able to help you sort through what's the specific decision that's right for you and how much is enough.
Yeah, let's dive into that $1 million number that's often cited. So here's what I found out doing a little bit of research. It's based on $6,000 a month, a 6% return, and increasing your withdrawals by 3% each year. The data that's out there says that your money will last 20 years. So just kind of an interesting side note on where that $1 million number comes from.
Well, and that $1 million number is also interesting as well. There's just this human affiliation with those round numbers. I'm sure you probably don't feel any less confident if you have $980,000, but we have those round numbers, so we get that kind of that bias of, hey, I want to hit that $1 million, or we get this high point bias of when your total retirement balance has hit a certain mark because the markets are good, and then maybe we go through a little bit of a downturn, and now maybe you feel like you need to get back to that point, whether that's $1 million or whether it's some other number, and now you are determining your retirement decisions based on that, which is something you have less control of. So that $1 million, again, it's a very generic average number, and that's where we want to help you focus on having that overall plan and make these decisions that put you in the best spot throughout your retirement.
People often do want to know, how do I stack up? So the most recent data I could find from the federal government, I was kind of trying to stay away from sourcing financial institutions. Those aren't bad to source, but I wanted some federal government data. And so this is from 2019. The average amount of retirement savings for those 65 to 74 was $426,000. So we know clearly a lot of people are retiring with a lot less than $1 million. And you guys work with a lot of families and individuals who live very happy and fulfilling retirements with a lot less than that. So you're hearing some interesting data right now. You might be wondering, what's my portfolio? How does it stack up to some of this data? How does it stack up to the rules of thumb? How am I ready for retirement? Am I ready for this mindset shift? A great way to get some more information is to talk directly with a retirement planner, somebody who does this every single day and looks at all this data and asks the right questions to help you get answers. So you can schedule a 15-minute retirement checkup call by going to merkleretire.com. That's MERKLE retire.com. And this is great. There's a calendar there. It's pretty easy, guys. Choose a time, choose a date that works for you, schedule a phone call, and then, Chawn, in 15 minutes, people will be surprised at what you can get accomplished.
Yeah, we have a lot of great conversation within 15 minutes, and sometimes it goes 10, sometimes it goes 20, but it's, the big thing is that we're trying to make this as easy as possible for you to have that maybe initial interaction with us. And some of our experiences, Clint and I do a lot of these, that sometimes you might just have a few questions. You've got some decision points immediately in front of you, and you need some guidance. For some others that you're starting to maybe wanting to figure out, learn more about what it means to have a retirement plan, what someone like our firm does, so that you can then decide, hey, do we want to talk further? So that 15-minute phone call, it's a very simple, low stress, easy way to help you in the best way possible.
Are you guys ready for the mindset shift?
We're ready.
Okay,
I'm in the right mindset.
This is 18-year-old Molly Nelson leaving the nest and going off to Drake University. Now she's on her own. Now she's got to make her own decisions, and there's a big world out there she's got to bravely conquer. So here's how she's going to do it. She's going to have some mindset shifts, and here's how you're going to do it in retirement. Mindset shift number 1, you are going to think differently about Social Security. And how are you going to do that, Chawn?
Electing Social Security is a very important decision that we are all going to be facing. It's a really big part of your total retirement plan. There's so much guidance out there. Clint, you touched on this a little bit before, that if you were to ask 3 different people, you might get 3 different responses on what they think you should do. But really what we want to help you do is ensure you have that overall plan so that you have all the information you need to make the best Social Security decision possible. We know that you can elect under most circumstances as early as age 62. There's opportunities for growth if we defer that all the way out to age 70. So we know we're going to have this 8-year window in which a majority of us are going to elect Social Security. What I want to stress is that this is one of those items that we very much don't want to treat this as a single transaction. When we help you build that plan, now you can look at your entire picture, which helps provide us the information we need to make the best Social Security decision possible. This is one of your assets. A lot of people don't necessarily put Social Security on their balance sheet because it's not a balance to them that you've saved throughout your lives. But we still have a goal of trying to maximize Social Security as much as possible. And it can be challenging. I mean, nobody knows for sure. None of us know exactly how long we're going to live. So nobody can tell you exactly, hey, this is the perfect month to elect Social Security. There are a lot of different factors that we want to be thinking about as we do that analysis and make that decision.
Yeah, there's definitely some stats that you guys lean on, or some predictive kinds of things. We know right now that if you make it to age 65, you have a life expectancy of 87 for a female, and I believe it's 86 or 85 for a male. So that's part of the formula. And Clint, sometimes I think people get really fixated on full retirement age, which is 66 or 67, depending on when you're born. But there are other factors to consider when making the decision. What are they?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's how does this fit within do you have a spouse, and how does this fit across the couple? Because the full retirement age may be the right decision for one of you, probably isn't for the other. And so we often will look at what's the combination strategy, how do we maximize this across your household? And then how do we maximize it within the course of your other components of your retirement plan? And this is one that I love because you can isolate these variables once the plan is built. And we can say, what if you elected at full retirement age? What if you wait until 70? And then we can look and see, what is that short-term decision going to do long-term? Let's go out age 90, and let's see how does this impact your plan overall. And we can oftentimes find really easily that there's a significant difference. At a certain point, you'll find the break even, and then you can see what decision we should make on how to maximize this decision within your overall portfolio and other investable assets. And then we can have a lot of confidence when we go to turn on that Social Security that we know we're making the right decision based on all of the data and the information that our plan supports. And it's not just, like Chawn said, a siloed decision where we're going to turn on Social Security the second that we click over this full retirement age, or when we retire, as many people do, they want to go immediately for that as a source of income. And it may or it may not be the right decision. That's what ultimately the plan will tell you.
And we see a lot of people that get set on a certain decision prior to even hitting that age. And that's something we don't necessarily want you to do, because part of what we are going to be facing is you're going to hit a stage of life where you have an income need. Electing Social Security is one of those assets that you can utilize to provide for that income need. And now when we get to age 62 or anywhere between 62 and 70, that's when we have to look at the landscape. Let's look at the factors that are in play and the various conditions. How are the markets doing? How is your health doing? Clint, like you touched on, if you're married, well, now we've got to think about some survivorship component there. So we don't want to make this decision and be locked in ahead of time. We want to look at the factors and look at the total picture at that opportunity once you have that opportunity to make an election decision.
Do you guys find that people get concerned about the future of Social Security and whether they'll receive their benefits?
Absolutely. I mean, it would be silly not to, right? We hear all the news stories and we hear all those concerns that are out there, and all we can do is rely on the best information available to make these decisions, but always keeping an eye to what are the legislative changes that could be out there. That's one risk that every retirement plan has, is what kind of legislative changes could happen and how could that impact you. And that's where we as planners are always staying up to date on the latest and the changes that are happening, and then also foreseeing what are these things going to potentially do to your plan, and making sure that we're taking all of those factors into account.
And I was in just a visit just yesterday with a single individual, and she was sharing that her plan was always to wait until age 70 to elect Social Security, but now she's reading the news and she's hearing some of these things that are saying, hey, Social Security may not be there for you, and it has her thinking more about, well, is that the right decision? So again, we know we're going to be able to help her analyze that, give her more information that she needs, so that she's going to feel really confident with whatever decision we help her decide.
I think as of right now, benefits are covered until March of 2034. If Congress makes no changes after that, benefits could be cut by 80%. But here's one side note on that. One of the biggest voting blocks we know is those 65 and over. So most people don't run on the platform of cutting Social Security, but we also know that our deficit is at an all-time high. So these are all the things that we're watching, because they could impact the families and individuals that we work with, and they could affect those getting ready to retire. The next mindset shift Everybody now say it with me.
I'm going to leave it to you. I don't want to mess it up.
Mindset shift number 2. Throw out those rules of thumb. Clint, they are no good.
Yeah, I mean, the 4% was one that we referenced earlier. You know, it makes sense if you have steady performance and steady returns in the market, but we know that just flat out we don't have that, right? I mean, we live in a world where the market is very volatile on a regular basis. And so the question that I would pose is, if you have $1 million portfolio, you're planning on taking 4% per year, well, what happens if the market turns down? And, you know, depending on how much risk you're taking, it may or may not go down as much as the S&P does. But let's say that it does go down by 20%. Well, then you're faced with a decision. Do you continue to take out $40,000, which is that 4% that you've built your lifestyle on? Because that's really going to be 5 or 6%.
Yeah, no one wants to take less, by the way. No one wants to continue to take 4%, which would be like $30,000 and downgrade their lifestyle in retirement.
Exactly. So that's where that really, to me, I mean, it starts to fall apart. And obviously your investment decisions, as we can see quickly, are going to impact your income plan. And so you need to make sure that both of those are on track to be able to work for you, because nobody wants to have to come out of retirement if the market comes down, or dramatically cut your lifestyle based on how the market performance is. I mean, there's better ways to plan. So that rule of thumb really falls apart, especially as you think about what happens if the market turns down.
And previously, that 4% rule, there was a lot of talk that it used to be the 5% rule, where they would allow you that comfortably you could take out 5%. And now there's some talk where it's really the 3% rule, where with all the different factors, you know, higher inflation and maybe a less certain market, that maybe you can only take 3% rule. So if this average rule of thumb keeps changing, well, how exactly do you apply it in your situation? And that's where we want to focus on, you know, the customization, the specifics that are part of your plan. We need to be looking at the entire thing so that you feel good about these strategies that you're going to implement for your plan.
And I was just in a visit with somebody within the last week, and their planner was really an investment advisor. And so they had an investment plan. Well, they were trying to take income on a regular basis. And this person that we were meeting with for the first time, they said, I just know this isn't going to work because I'm still going to be taking the same amount.
What a terrible feeling.
My investments cannot be taking as much market risk as they once could. And so they were really faced with a position where they did not feel comfortable with the future that they were going down by taking the same amount every year. Really, they had an investment plan. They did not have an income plan or an overall retirement plan. And they could feel that every time the market dips, that they knew they were going to be depleting their assets that much quicker.
And I think that 4% rule, too, if you read into it a little bit, it's based on a stock bond portfolio. And you talked about doing things the way that your parents did it. Well, you guys know way better than I do. There are a lot more options now for a portfolio in retirement that doesn't have to fluctuate with the markets. And we know that bonds have not performed that well lately. So there are a lot more options than there used to be. And that's why some of those rules of thumb too have an old way of looking at investments.
Yeah, one thing you want to focus on to try to help offset some of the risk if you are trying to implement a 4% rule is just we still need diversification within our investment portfolio. And diversification is not a new concept, but here we are today talking about these mindset shifts. Well, this is another area that's part of the planning that we need to have a mindset shift of, you know, how you've invested throughout your accumulation stage of life and what got you here isn't necessarily the same portfolio and investment decisions or investment design that can get you there, and there being through a successful, long, you know, retirement journey. So we know we can't control the markets. Market's going to go up, market's going to go down, and if you're taking out that 4% while the market's going to go down, well, something's got to give. So we want to focus on some alternative types of investments. Let's have a part of your portfolio that has a different purpose in any given market cycle. So you may want to have a certain amount of dollars of your portfolio that can't go down, right? Let's have a zero floor on some of that. And that way that might be one of your investment strategies that can support a 4% rule for a certain time period of 1 year or multiple year. And then while the markets are strong, we still have part of your portfolio that is taking higher risk and is going to get those strong returns when the markets are doing well.
Clint, did you hear how eloquently he said it? It just rolled off of his tongue. All of it, but especially mindset shift. You said it like 3 times. I'm just in awe.
Didn't even stutter,
it
right?
was so good, and we've got one more left. So tee us up here, Chawn. What is it called?
It's what you get to keep, not just what you have in total. Is
There
that
you
where
go.
you're directing
There
me?
you go.
Mindset shift number 3. It's about what you get to spend.
And that is such a big focus of the tax planning component that is one of the 6 components that are part of our retirement planning process. I mean, all of you out there know exactly what you have saved in total, but for a lot of those balances that are in a pre-tax account, you have Uncle Sam and the IRS as one of your business partners. And I think most of the families I've talked with have said they don't really want to spend a lot of time in retirement with Uncle Sam. You know, he's not very friendly to them. So what we do is we try to focus on what you get to keep and what you get to spend. So we want to have this long-term tax plan to help you minimize your tax liability throughout that retirement journey. And that way at the right time. So when you have efficient opportunities to potentially move some of your pre-tax balances over to Roth accounts, you know, still have those funds invested and get some growth, the more tax-free dollars that you can have within your total portfolio as you continue through your retirement journey, the stronger of a position you're going to be in. You know, every single dollar that you own inside of a Roth account, you know you get to keep and spend that entire dollar. And now you're able to lower your tax rate risk throughout your retirement, and all of those different strategies, you know, the tax planning component in conjunction with the other 5 components that are part of our plan, they're meant to provide you with that much more comfort and provide you with that much more confidence that you're going to make it through your retirement and not run out of money before you run out of time.
People get stuck on numbers, right? So this $1 million, we're talking about that. And I've heard Lauren say this before. You guys can speak to it. I'll tee it up a little bit, but you can have a $1 million IRA that you haven't paid taxes on, and you can have that through retirement. But he said you could end up paying $500,000 in taxes over the course of your retirement. All of a sudden, that $1 million doesn't sound so sweet anymore if it's all going to be taxable in retirement.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes you'll see you can take that pre-tax IRA, you know, as you're headed into retirement and anticipate a 40 to 60% of that being something that you're going to have for a cumulative tax bill in retirement. Could be higher. You know, those are all factors that we can help you identify and work through. But yeah, when you start to take into that consideration, like Chawn said, Uncle Sam's a greedy business partner. That's just saying that things stay the same. You know, what if rates do go up? You know, you're really at risk for that. Again, another risk in a retirement plan that you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to mitigate where appropriate, giving yourself more that you can keep and spend at the end of the day, or pass on to your legacy, whatever that may look like for you.
And just imagine having that long-term tax plan where we have 10, 20, 30, or maybe more years to help minimize that tax bill. So what if you're able to minimize and decrease that total tax bill from $500,000 down to $400,000, just as an example? That's real return, you know, and that's something that you want to be thinking of. You know, the tax plan of the 6 components that we focus on, we do have a lot of control over the tax planning component of the plan, and that is real return when you pay less to Uncle Sam and you get to keep and spend more of your hard-earned retirement savings. So now you are in a position to possibly spend more, raise your lifestyle, make those golden years even more golden, or potentially just be able to leave more of a meaningful legacy to your beneficiaries, loved ones, and children.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that with the Secure Act change, you have to think about pre-tax money that your kids, for example, may inherit. I mean, they're on the hook for that to come out within a window of time. And then they, in many cases, are at high earning years in their careers. They're going to stack it on top of an already strong household income. And so part of your tax plan should also be to think through what's the legacy component and how do we be as efficient as possible to transfer those assets to the beneficiaries, whoever they may be.
And that's a great point to make, that for a lot of people, they do only think about their 10 or 20-year retirement journey. But for individuals that have saved well and know that, hey, that you are unlikely to spend all of your assets, you really want to be thinking of a tax plan now like as a 50-year tax plan or 60, because whether it's you spending your retirement savings or your children spending your retirement savings, you still want to maximize that. You still want to pay the least amount possible to the IRS and put yourself and your family in a position to keep and spend as much of that yourself as possible.
Chawn, you said something that I think really wraps this up and puts a bow on the top of it. And I believe, Clint and Chawn, that people have more control over their retirement income than they think. I think that really, if we had to kind of put this mindset shift into one statement, is you have more control than you think, and that's something to be excited about.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's something we do really want to focus on. We know when you're working in your 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe into your 50s, so much of our attention goes to the investments because that's really the sole component that people are thinking about. But now as you shift into the pre-retirement and retirement stage of life, much like we're talking about today, it is that mindset shift of, hey, there's a lot more out there. An investment plan is this big, and I'm holding my hands nice and close together, whereas a retirement plan is this big, and now I've moved my hands farther apart. There's way more. There's 6 components, and now you have way more opportunity to implement strategies to maximize your total plan, focus on control, focus on what we can control so that you feel really confident about all the decisions you're going to face in retirement.
So having more control is exciting, but it might still feel a little bit scary because you don't maybe know exactly what to do. That's okay. You don't have to start this journey on your own. You can talk with the retirement planner. You can schedule a 15-minute retirement checkup call right now by going to merkleretire.com. Remember, Merkle spelled MERKLE, retire.com. There is a link in our show notes right there. Find a calendar, you choose a time and a date that works for you, and then you've got 15 minutes. So you can lead the discussion, you can ask questions, or you guys are definitely open to giving people tips and strategies and asking them what's on their mind. They don't necessarily have to have an agenda for those 15 minutes, Clint.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll lead you through the things that and we hear that a lot. I don't even know what questions I should be asking. I don't even know what I should be thinking about. I just know that the phase of life that I'm about to approach is different, and there's a lot more moving parts. And we can help to identify what those things are for you and get you started on some things to be thinking about, or talk to you about, what makes sense for as far as the next steps may go.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, most of the families we work with, you've never built this retirement plan and you don't know where to start. And I think what we're trying to do the most is if you know this is important to you and you're at a stage of life where you're ready for a retirement plan, we just want to help get you started. If we can get you to step 1, we know that you're way more likely to continue through that process and get to a point where you do have that comprehensive retirement plan.
And we'll keep talking about all of the aspects of a comprehensive retirement plan on this podcast. It's Retiring Today, and we thank you for listening. Merkle Retirement Planning is an independent financial services firm helping individuals create retirement strategies using a variety of investments and insurance products to custom suit their goals and objectives. Any information discussed in these shows is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as investment, tax, or legal advice. Investment advisory services are offered through Elite Retirement Planning LLC. Insurance services are offered through MRP Insurance LLC.